And in addition to regular statutory allocations, the federal government says the state governments and local governments are getting more funds under the current administration, leading to a surplus of about 7.1 trillion naira. According to the finance minister and coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Wale Edun, the funds consist of statutory allocations as well as refunds made to them for earlier deductions, noting that the federal government effectively passed proceeds of the fuel subsidy removal to Nigerians. Well, joining us now to analyze the finance minister's claim
that state governments are receiving
increased funding and whether this has translated into measurable governance improvements across Nigeria's subnational entities. We have Professor Franklin Ngwu. He's the Director of Public Sector Initiative, Lagos Business School. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight tonight. So, the government is saying that the states are awash with funds, about 111% allocation increase from what they were getting before. I mean, help us unpack what the finance minister is saying. I mean, if anybody knows, he should know whether indeed what the states are getting now, when you compare in terms of value of what they're getting, would it be fair to expect a lot more in terms of deliverables, whether it's infrastructure you're talking about, you know, education, health, and what have you?
I think the Minister of Finance is correct. So in terms of, before we talk about value, let's talk about the amount they are receiving. So of course, we also heard that the federal government has met its revenue target. So it means that if they've met the revenue target, the allocation to the state, local government should increase. And we also know that based on subsidy removal, foreign exchange harmonization, there are more naira or more money going to these different levels of government. So the question then is the value and what they are using it to do in terms of the projects, what is the quality of the project they are doing, in terms of what are the targets that they are focusing and all that. But in terms of are they getting more money, yes, they are getting more money. In addition to that, some states have also increased their IGR. So based on tax, based on maybe managing the assets of the state. So there's really more money in across the levels of government, federal, state, local. The main question is, are we getting the tangible results or outcomes?
That's the question, are we? Are we getting it?
From my own assessment, we are not really getting the kind of what we need. In the sense that if you follow the reports, Nigerians are still being classified as very poor. So just yesterday, there was a report from the UN organization that said that Nigeria now has the highest number of poor people in a particular country. So it means that if we are looking at the money they're getting, are they using it for the outcomes required to move the country forward? The answer is no. Then it means that they can do a lot better. So the question then is, what are the options or what are the things that we expect them to do to maybe do more? I think that one of the things that we can do is to say, okay, we know we had what we call a peer review mechanism before, that we're focusing on certain areas. So now that, if you remember also, that Nigeria, they say that we've not passed any of the sustainable development goals. So can we say that let the states focus on key development goals, education, health, and all that. And we can now do a periodic evaluation, maybe after 6 months, after 1 year, to say what have you achieved. But the issue or what we are seeing in the states, some of them are trying, no doubt about it. However, some of them are focusing on maybe road projects, which many people argue provides an opportunity. You can vary the cost. You can say it costs 1 billion. You can say it costs 500 million to do a kilometer of road. Nobody is there to maybe properly check the quality of the road and compare it across board. So what we are supposed to focus is to maybe pressure the governors to rethink and redirect the resources of the state to things that are more tangible, more impactful to the governance of the states.
Great. Professor, can I take you back to the initial question?
Yes.
And this debate about the core value of the naira.
Yes.
Because I hear you say in naira terms, there's more money, and the finance minister is correct to say the states are awash. But then some argue that what do we really do in naira terms? I mean, it's the naira to the dollar terms, because even in borrowing, in spending, it's usually the dollar terms. So In that instance, if you look at the value of the naira to the dollar, before now and currently, some argue that the states are actually not getting as much as they claim to be getting. So that's argument of what is the value really? Are we looking at it in the local currency or in the green currency of the dollar, which is what the states subnationals usually will spend? Help us settle that debate first before I come back to you.
I think that in looking at it, whether it's dollar or in naira,
yes,
the answer is that the states are getting more money. So if you are getting more naira, it means that you can exchange it at the current value of the dollar and still get more dollars. Because if you look at it, we did a study across the 36 states. The average budget for each of these states is about over 500 billion. Local governments, we have about 774 local governments.
Yeah.
The average budget is about 5 billion in a year. So as compared to what they were getting before. But remember also that in terms of components of expenditure, you have naira and you have maybe some of the things that they will need to import and other things that you would do in dollars.
Yes.
But in terms of payment of salaries, education, aspects of health and all that, those are done in naira. So it means that if they are getting more money, they should even focus on spending this money on these critical areas of development. So nobody is questioning whether there has been a depreciation of naira in terms of harmonization and all that. But what we are saying that before all these reforms that have been carried out, the extent we are not getting as they are getting now. And even whether you change it to naira, whether you change it to dollars, as the case
money
may
is
be,
actually
the
more.
is actually more. And if they are having more, remember that our Lego tender is naira. And I can also argue that maybe 70% or 30%, 60% of what they are doing are in naira. It means that they should do more from what they are getting.
So then brings me to the question of transparency. There's so much focus on budgeting at the federal level, but not that much at the state. We've talked about peer review, which we used to have, perhaps KPIs and all of that. But transparency at the subnationals, how can we do that? What sort of mechanisms can we put in place to ensure that every naira, every kobo counts as they budget it to be?
I think that this brings maybe Nigerian Governors Forum, maybe to lead the charge or to also involve other stakeholders, maybe civil society organization to say, okay, let's set up a mechanism to ensure that every naira received from the state and every naira spent is properly disclosed, properly reported, properly accounted, and so people can question and say, how much did you get this month? What did you use it to do? I think that it is, most of the time when we're on television, newspapers, everywhere, the attention is normally on federal government, too much.
Yes.
But if you combine 500 billion, some things are budgeting 1 trillion, 800 billion, 600 billion as the case. But if you combine all of them and then do another 5 billion times the 774 government that we have, it means that what they are getting, I mean the other two levels of government, states and local government, can be said to be very, very high. So what is required is how do we institute a proper mechanism or framework that will ensure that the state governors are using it for what they are supposed to do.
Yes,
infrastructure is important, but the key areas remain health, education, that will actually help us to transform Nigeria.
A very good place to leave it. Professor Franklin Nnemeka Ngwu is the Director of Public Sector Initiative, Lagos Business School. Thank you very much
Thank you
for joining us.